Good evening, this is the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board. May 5th, 2025. I'll call this meeting to order. We have an approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve by Scott Anderson.
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Bossy to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Mr. Franzuto,
Aye.
Mr. Sherlin.
Aye.
Mr. Brace,
Aye.
Mr. DeCosta.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. We'll move right up to Marine Department report. Sheila Lucy, please.
Okay, so we have changes for the regulations, which I was going to bring tonight, but I am going to put it off. Dave has tweaked them and they look good, but there's two different versions of them. We're having problems with the dinghy docks downtown being overcrowded and causing like safety problems. So we initially came up with the idea to have everybody on the dinghy dock get a dinghy dock permit. And they would have to be attached to a mooring. And then we were gonna do transient ones for like Nantucket moorings, which would be for a couple of days or whatever that case may be, but they would be attached to a mooring. However, we started thinking about it and it would put a lot of people out of boating if we did it that way. Our main problem is that, Mike Allen, Tidal Creeks has, like 25 of them that he drops into the dinghy docks and then they don't move all summer. So there's 25 spots and it makes it difficult. So, I came up with two different solutions. One, I want to talk to Mike Allen to see if he'll consider valeting those boats, only putting them in when the people are actually gonna use them for the weekend instead of just having them, leaving them there from like April till October. Or another idea I have is the next door to the Marine Department where Walter Galacki's property was and Land Bank owns that now. And he used to have 4 floating docks that were attached for his boats out there. The moorings remain there. They're still there and there's nobody on those moorings. I was gonna see if the land bank would put those back in. And we could use that as a secondary dinghy dock. I know that they've been trying to help us out with a dinghy dock over at Petrol Landing for years, but they haven't been able to get that through court or whatever the case may be. But I haven't been able to meet with either Mike Allen or the land bank because everybody's been on vacation. So prior to the next meeting, I will have met with them. We'll come up with a solution, whether we're gonna have to go with the permit or whether not, and then I will bring the regulations to you at next month's first meeting. So that's where we are on that. One thing we did do this summer that worked out really well that I will continue to do this coming summer was we had the staff down there at the dinghy docks to help people get on and off of their dinghies, grab their bags, grab their groceries, do all that stuff. Worked out really well during the day. My problem is at nighttime because we close at 7. So at night, it's still pretty dangerous when people are coming back from the bars, doing whatever and climbing onto those dinghies when they're that many deep. So I'm hoping to see if we can't find some way to relieve it. But either way, Dave has gone through the regs and fixed them and they look good. And I think he's happy with them too. So I'll bring them next month. I saw somebody just gave me a piece of paper, but the next topic was gonna be talk about that wreckage at Monomoy. We have removed a bunch of wreckage at Monomoy last year when we had that sailboat that washed up against the dock there. We had Robert Biauer out there and he grabbed that sailboat, but he also grabbed some wreckage. But clearly he didn't grab it at all. I've spoken with Timmy, Timmy Reinemo, I've spoken with Floppy, and we're all aware of it, and our plan is as soon as the weather permits, they're gonna go down, take a look at it, see what we can do, we'll get it out of there. And I've already spoken to everybody saying that we need to spend the money to get it done, so that is right at the top of our list of things to do for the spring when things lighten up a little bit. And that should be it, for it over there, this last little bit, but I will make sure that they do a survey of the whole bottom over there, just to make sure that we get it all done this time. That ended up being that kid Sean Lafferty that ended up working for the town for a while. We did take him to court, environmental police took him to court, he was allegedly paying to have it removed, through the court, but I think he has stopped, so I've engaged Dave Wright from the environmental police to get back on it, see where he is, see what he's paid so far, and that's how we will recoup the money. For it again. We did get the floating dock on the town pier is concrete, and it is, awesome. It was a huge game changer, for the guys down there, plus the extension that we built. It rides entirely different down there. It's really good. The unfortunate part is when they were installing one of the fingers last year, had a crack in it. And that has gotten worse. That will be replaced, and it'll be replaced in April. So there's one finger right now that's not usable, but it'll be ready for the season. The finger's already over on the Cape, and we're just trying to figure out a cheap way to get it over here. Well, you know, what you call it, so where we bought the floats from has to pay for it to get over here because it was on their watch that it broke. We're working with National Grid right now. I don't really know what the holdup is, but we're having a hard time getting them to put a pole in. They're supposed to put a pole in between the old Brand Point Marine and 34 Washington Street to give us power out to the floater and everything else. And every time you talk to them, they say it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Hasn't come yet. So that we need to get done by May as well. We're waiting on information for when the 34 Washington Street is gonna get replaced, repaired, whatever they're going to do with it. The hopes is to either get it in on the fall special town meeting or on town meeting 2026, the April one. Hopefully we can get it done for the fall one. The special one this fall, but there is like, that seems to have gained some momentum. There's a lot of more people asking questions about it and hoping for it to go forward. We did hire, a new full-time assistant in, October. Charlie Smith, he's retired Coast Guard, he was stationed at Brand Point for 6 years, so he's pretty familiar with the waters. He started in October, so I think you guys will see a good increase of patrols in the summertime, because that's gonna be pretty much his full-time job, is to be patrolling. And, you know, we're gonna be doing a ton of training with the dock staff and the seasonal crew to get it out there. We did purchase that multi-mission platform that has extremely good firefighting capability. It's over in Hyannis. It's in the Helen H yard there. If you ever take the boat over, you can see it. It's 38 feet. It's called the Firehawk. It's got incredible firefighting capabilities. I think a lot of people have visions of it going to put out boat fires. I think the capacity is way too big for that. But it'll be amazing for if we have a dock fire, something happening at the boat base in the town pier. You know, as you guys know, the whole waterfront infrastructure is made out of wood, so it's awesome that we're gonna have this thing. We're planning on splashing that in April, early April, and be steaming it over before April 15th. We'll have it here.
I'm sorry, Sheila, I didn't catch that. Is that a new acquisition for your department?
Yes,
Wow, great. Thank you.
yeah. And we got a really good deal on it because what happened was the guy from the H thought he was gonna have way more work to do down at, on the wind farm. And the wind farm, people required him to have boat firefighting capability that was jet driven. And so he went down to this place, Lake Norman in North Carolina, and got it from there. So the thing has like no hours on it. And he got it here and he didn't get the contract with Vineyard Wind, so he had reached out to me and said, I know you guys have been, because we've been putting in for grants to get something with firefighting capabilities for years. So this was it was a good deal, and it's got the firefighting capability that we'd need if we need it. So yeah, pretty excited about that. It's a jet boat, so it's gonna be new for a lot of people, but we have, Charlie and myself have, quite a bit of experience running a jet boat, so it should be good, and we'll get everybody trained up on it to make sure it works. We have that new building is operational out at Shadbush. We have like temporary lights where, they're cobbling it together, but that also has been a huge game changer for us because we're now able to work inside, like building the lifeguard stands now, building all that type of equipment now, so we don't have a big, huge gun to our head. Come April and May, it's the building is awesome, and we have been using it quite a bit over the winter. Just it's not heated yet, but just not having to be working outside in the wind and all that stuff has made a huge difference. Lifeguards, we have our applications just closed. We received 98 applications. We're up for our US Life Saving Association recertification, which we just completed, and they just called me this afternoon and told me that we have been approved to get that done. That is a national certification that has like really exacting standards and stuff that we worked really hard to get. And so this will be our third renewal. And they're good for 3 years. And I think that's pretty much what I have. Yes.
Or Mr. Chair,
Scott, go ahead.
the buoy that's in the harbor that was taken from Great Point,
Yeah,
what's the plan on moving that?
was supposed to be gone months ago, but
Okay.
that's up to the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard cutter Ida Lewis is gonna come and get it. So right now, we have it attached with one of our wire bridles. And then they're gonna disconnect it, tow it out, probably out to Nantucket Sound, and then have the Ida Lewis pull it out there, because they're not gonna wanna come in the harbor. They could, but they won't. And so that's the plan for that. Then there's another one that's up, there's a green one that's up. Off of Great Point on the beach as well, so I would imagine that. Once that one gets off the mooring, because I told them we don't have any place else to store their buoys, so. Hopefully they'll get that gone soon.
Right. Thank you, Sheila. Just curious on the firefighting boat, how long did you say it is? 38?
Yeah,
And you'll have capabilities of getting, that'll be wintered out of the water and out of the Shadbush facility?
I don't know where we'll put it in the winter, but yeah, we're gonna probably pull it in the winter time.
Okay, all right, and God, I'm sorry to hear about, it sounds like a real debacle at the dinghy dock, and but it also sounds like you've really been working on solutions there. So can't express enough of how much effort you've had to put into that, and I hope you're able to come to some type of a conclusion with Michael Allen on that. That doesn't really seem fair for that much space to be taken up in that manner. Hopefully the concierge type solution can work, and also maybe some floating docks in front of Glowacki's old property. And when you mentioned 34 Washington Street, basically what you're saying is the rebuilding, of the Marine Department building, correct?
Yeah, the harbor master building at 34 Washington, yes.
Yeah, and I imagine it has to, is there more that has to be appropriated for the cost of that through town meeting?
I'm sure that's why they're waiting.
Yeah. All right, Bob,
A couple questions. Sheila, is that fireboat, is it capable of being left in the water year round? Because, it'd be nice if we could get a slip for it in the marina and keep it in the water year round, especially if we had a winter structure fire down there. There's just as much a chance of something catching fire on that waterfront. Yeah, I think even more in the winter when those cottages shut down, who knows what happens to them in there. And you do, as far as manpower, I think you have at least four licensed captains on the fire department now that could all be cross-trained to at least help run the equipment and all that stuff. So I'm glad we're getting one. It's long overdue. And I agree. I don't know, you're not going to really be able to fight much of a fire with it in the mooring field unless you tie it to a mooring. Because Joe talked to me about this boat as well as obviously you. I told him to call you, but the boat's got so much firefighting capacity, he said, that it has to be secured to a dock or a mooring of some sort, because when you turn that pump on, it just blows the thing backwards. But he said you could literally be in my slip inside Straight Wharf and shoot a stream of water over the buildings to where the Highline slip is. So it's nice if we ever, God forbid, get a big yacht fire or something, that we have the ability to put a lot of water on it. So I'm happy to hear that.
I can look into, how we can make it happen for the winter time. Their big thing is just, they like to drain everything and stuff like that, but I will definitely talk to them. I gotta go over and meet with them about commissioning it, because we did drain all the systems and everything for the winter this year, but I will tell them our goal is to try to keep it in year round. I have no problem with that at all.
It's got, it's a really great boat. It's got 3 Cummins QSBs in it, I have a Cummins in my boat. They're phenomenal engines. They're workhorses. They're easy to maintain. And, I think it's going to be a great addition to the town. God forbid we need it.
I agree.
thanks, Bob, thank you, Sheila. Board members? Questions, comments?
Any question?
Peter, please.
So the maximum, if something is under 13, it's a dinghy, is that right?
Well, for our dinghy dock purposes, it's 13 feet and under.
What if you lowered the length? Would that hurt people who have legitimate dinghies, or?
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah. I think the valet thing for Mike is reasonable, because I could just say, well, then they could lose it altogether. Because they're using it as a free slip, is basically what they're doing, and then we end up babysitting, we end up pulling the water out of them, and and we never see, they don't leave the dock. 2 or 3 of them do, but the rest of them just sit there.
Mr. Chairman.
Dave, please.
Yeah, Peter, the reason it's 13 feet is the same logic that Sheila's using. If we pick 13 feet, because there's a lot of 13-foot whalers, which is how a lot of people get an opportunity to get onto the water. So that's why 13 was chosen years ago. It opens up that many more people to be able to, use the water that aren't going to own a, 30-foot boat. So that's why 13 was chosen.
Okay. Anybody else on the Marine Department report from the board? Comments or questions? Anybody from the public? The submerged boat wreckage that's in old business. If anybody's here to speak on that, I'd like to handle that now if we could, considering that's Marine Department issue. And so I didn't know if anybody's here that wanted to speak particularly on that. Jim, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, Bruce is here, I think. You want to talk about it, Bruce?
Okay.
Yeah, Andy,
You want to come up here and just come up and sit with us, the video camera will be able to see you better.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Jim.
I'm glad that we're gonna have some action taken to get rid of this debris, and I've been able to mark with my GPS some of the obstacles that I've been hung up on this season. And I too have spoken with Tim and Chris Fuller. So Sheila, we're on the same page. And
Yeah, I
if-
couldn't agree with you more. I feel bad that it's there, and every single time we think we get it all out.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to work with you and those
Absolutely.
guys to, facilitate getting stuff out once and for all.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right?
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Sheila, I'm not sure if you saw the YouTube video that some people in a sailboat made. They got their anchor hung up on one portion of it. And
Yeah, I sent it to me.
okay, all right.
I know about it.
And so just cooperation across the board, as you know, Sheila, is always going to help in getting things accomplished, and we know you know how to put this all together. So thanks so much for
There
listening.
shouldn't have been anchor in there anyway.
That's
What?
right.
Dave.
Sorry.
All right. Okay, anybody else on Marine Department report or the submerged boat wreckage off of Monomoy? All right, we'll move forward.
Andy, are you all set with me?
I think we are, Sheila, if there's the board.
Sheila.
Okay with that?
Sheila,
Okay.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Sheila, tomorrow, if you have a minute, would you give me a call so we can talk further about what you talked to me about earlier?
Definitely.
All right,
Yep.
appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sheila. Good night. Natural Resources report.
Well,
Mine is not gonna be as exciting as Sheila's, unfortunately, so, just to run through, and again, sorry, Tara couldn't make it tonight, she's tied up with things, but she sent me some stuff. We've started conditioning oysters and rib mussels for our first spawns of the year. I know Tara's talked about it here before, but our primary species is still bay scallops, but every year we try to mix in a couple different species just to, in some cases, give it a try, like rib mussel. We pick rib mussel primarily because we see a lot of it related to salt marshes and salt marsh stabilization, and that's something we're looking to get into for resiliency purposes a little bit, so actually folks are gonna give it a try, see how it goes. And then oysters are a little bit more obvious. To help out both the main office here at 131 Pleasant Street and the hatchery, we each have a school to career student for the second semester this year, so it's just a high school student that comes for a couple hours every day that wants to learn about what we do in natural resources, and they're unpaid and they're great to have for a little extra help. As far as seasonals go, we posted 3 positions this year that were available. We have a couple returners coming back for the other ones. We have 3 offers out on that right now. We had just over 90 applicants for those 3 positions, so that's kind of a high for us. We're really excited about that. We're still working on securing some housing, which may impact the offers that are out, but hopefully we'll get that resolved. But we had a lot of really great applicants. Like I said, 90 for 3 positions is pretty huge for us. And I know the crew, they actually spent a lot of time going through those. More importantly, I would say tomorrow, for those who didn't see, we were able to secure a grant from the Great Harbor Yacht Club Foundation to put together an eelgrass management plan. And we'll be working with Urban Harbors Institute, who are also working on our harbor plan to develop that plan with the panel of scientific advisors from Great Harbor to help a little bit. And that includes folks like Steve Tettelbach out of the Peconic area. I always mess up his name. Brad Peterson from the Peconic area. He did a lot of eelgrass research there. The folks at Urban Harbors, and then some of our other connections at UMass. We're having kind of our third scoping meeting on that tomorrow. And we'll hopefully have all of that well underway and at least a little presentation for you guys for what that's going to look like coming up in the next month or so for what's going on for eelgrass management plan. And the foundation has also announced their second phase of grant cycles, which are due in April. So we may be applying for that. We're not sure what that would be, but that's also open up to, other nonprofits or other agencies that are interested in something from there. Some of the other things that are happening, obviously at a federal level, things are a little unstable at the moment. We've been getting a lot of requests from groups, including places like WHOI, or Woodsville Oceanographic Institute, seeking letters of support as funding is at risk, and a lot of grant funding has been at risk, but those programs are also kind of imperiled. So that's something we're talking about internally. And we've had a lot of other training sessions and things that are going on outside of that. As far as other things that we've talked about, obviously we're moving into the field season for all of us. So water quality starts up in the next month to month and a half for sampling on the harbors. Pond openings are obviously the next month to month and a half. But we're kind of moving out of office and grant season and into field season. So we're kind of off and rolling.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions or comments for natural resources?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Dave.
Yeah, I'm trying to plug my laptop in. Jeff, are you gonna be able to utilize any of the housing that the Marine Department is vacating?
Yeah, so right now, we're all kind of working through the town has their housing office and seasonals are there. There's some demand for seasonal housing with some other departments like Public Works. And we're just kind of taking a final inventory and sorting that out. We've also talked to some other groups that have housing available, like the Land Bank we've worked with before, for stuff that's temporary, but I'm pretty sure we'll get it squared away with a number of options that are out there.
I should have asked Sheila, but I'll ask you. You probably know what's the prognosis for occupancy of that new building?
Which new building? There's a lot of them.
The housing building at Fairgrounds.
I'm
At
not
Tacoma,
sure.
Whatever.
I'm not sure when that'll be open and available. It's definitely not built yet, so I'm not sure what the estimate.
They're telling her it's going to be available by May.
Yeah, I don't know what the availability of that is. So off the top of my head.
All right, I just wanted to see if you could use some of that housing. She's been given marching orders to vacate all those properties, so.
Yeah, no, there's a big shuffle of housing that's afoot, and a lot of it's contingent on things finishing on time. So we'll see how that goes.
All right, I'll jump off here for a minute. I gotta plug my laptop in.
Okay, board members, questions or comments on natural resources report? Not seeing or hearing any from here. Will you be staying with us through the meeting, Jeff?
Yeah, there are a couple of things later, like the shellfish regulations, and I'm happy to touch on that now because I know we owe you guys a final draft, and Tara and I were both away last week, so we didn't get a chance to finish that and get that to you guys on time. So we'll have that for you guys for the next meeting. And then at a later agenda item, I'm going to switch hats from town employment and represent another committee that I'm on to talk about elected or appointed things. So I'll be here.
All right, we'll get to that pretty quickly, I think. Questions or comments from the public on natural resources report? Not seeing any hands up. Yes,
I don't know where this fits in, but Erica emailed me today and asked which of us is gonna go to the select board meeting tomorrow night and speak on behalf of the board for our season extension request.
yes, I saw that as well, Peter. And I see that Jeff responded that he and Tara will be attending remotely. I could try to do the same if you feel it's necessary. If a board member that's there, I will not be able to make it in person. If there's a board member that would like to join in person. First of all, Jeff, do you feel a board member needs to be there for this? I appreciate you and Tara being able to represent this. Or shall we recruit a board member like Mr. DeCosta or Mr. Sherwin to sit in on the meeting?
And I hate to take up people's time, but I always think for something like this, if someone is available, even if it's remotely. If it comes up, someone's there. Like I said, Tara and I will be there. We may be there in person or remote.
Yeah.
But obviously are happy to represent the board's discussion that's there, but if someone from the board wants to represent the board,
Okay,
never hurts.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask, what are we, who, the part, what we're gonna present?
the scallops, commercial scallop season extension to April 11th.
Oh, okay.
Anybody
When is that
available?
when is that being reviewed?
Tomorrow, select board meeting tomorrow evening, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Bob,
No, it shouldn't be Jim or I. I'll explain later, but it should be with somebody else.
okay, all right.
What did we propose?
Extending it to April 11th.
Okay.
Which is basically 2 weeks.
And
Last day of the season is Monday, the 31st, so you get that entire week, beginning with the 31st and then the following week.
any changes to the bushel limit?
No. No, we did discuss it, but we decided that remained the same. So, and I don't believe we have that on the agenda if we wanted to discuss it tonight, so.
No, I just missed what we were contemplating representing at. I just didn't hear that part.
Yeah,
So, Mr.
Right.
Chairman, for Bobby, you guys don't want to do it because you're fishermen, is that right?
So I was gonna bring this up later in the in our agenda because it comes under the agenda item of whether we're elected or appointed, but I got a call last week from an investigator from the State Ethics Commission. Someone reported me to the State Ethics Commission saying that when we went from 5 to 6 boxes, I violated state ethics laws because I have a financial interest in scalloping. Therefore, I benefited from the increase from 5 to 6. They wouldn't tell me who it was. I have my suspicions, but what the investigator said was, I explained to him that we discussed it as a board. We're an advisory board and we don't actually make the policy, that the select board makes the final decision, and that this recommendation came from natural resources as much as it came from us. But he told me that because we're an elected board, we can't discuss anything that has a financial interest to us. If we were an appointed board, the select board would give us a waiver. So I said, well, if that's the case, then how can you have a board that supposedly is experts or at least qualified to give advice in the area that's called the Shellfish and Harbor Advisory Board? And he said, well, we'll have to look into it more. So I think in the meantime, for me anyway, I'm just going to step back from anything that has to do with shellfishing. But if that's the case, then I'd have to abstain from any discussion regarding shellfish regulations, shellfish changes to regulations. I could probably even be considered for moorings, pretty much everything that we discuss in this board, I wouldn't be able to discuss. So it seems
No,
kind
wait,
of
Well,
obvious to
wait,
me.
you misunderstand me. Mr. Chairman,
One at a
Mr.
time. Who wants to talk?
Mr. Chairman, don't you remember, Jeff? Like, a long time ago, there was a bill before the State House. That there was a bill in the state legislature that sought to um, either make it so fishermen couldn't comment on just what Bobby was saying on shellfish boards, or that they could. I can't remember which it was, and I don't remember the outcome of it, but it was back, in Wendy McCrae days.
I have to dig
But
that out.
I know that it was. I'm almost certain that it was, we all get a waiver because we're on the shellfish board and whether you're
I
a fisherman.
think, if I remember correctly, they can be involved in the discussion, they can't be involved in the vote.
Correct.
In other words, he and Jimmy or a fisherman can impart their knowledge as far as the condition of the fishery um, and the pros and cons of what would or wouldn't change if you increase the limit or more time or whatever. But it's my remember that that expertise was allowed, but they weren't allowed to be involved in the vote, if I remember correctly. Because I remember fishermen abstaining from the vote. That's my recollection.
That sounds logical. Gosh, Mr. Franzuto, I'm glad you're here. And Bob, this is really unfortunate to hear, because, your involvement here, is so important to us. So please don't let it discourage you. And I feel actually partially, guilty as both Mr. Brace and I should probably be aware of this and, just be there to remind you that, okay, discussion is okay, but voting you need to abstain from. We live and learn, and we will, learn from this and move forward. So,
If
thank.
if we did go to an appointed board, what he told me was that it's very simple. If it's an appointed board, the selectmen just give you a waiver to say that you're allowed to discuss and vote on items that have a financial interest for you because your expertise is needed in that area. So that's what I was waiting for to bring this up with the committee versus elected. In the future, I'll just abstain, get up and become a member of the general audience and then make my comments as a public citizen. I don't think they can stop me from doing that, and I won't vote, but until I get.
Can I ask, is this why that is an agenda item?
No. I want us as a board, and I'm glad we have a full quorum, to simply, I want to poll the board. How do you feel about this board being elected or appointed? We need to weigh out the pros and cons of this. I guess it's being discussed. Mr. Carlson can explain to us a little more of, where and why this is being discussed. And I guess our board was, well, we'll continue this discussion in new business. Let's, finish up what we have in old business. But there's perfectly good reason behind this, and I understand it, and you will too when it's explained.
But Mr. Chairman, we still gotta decide who's gonna go and speak on behalf of the board, because I don't think Erica would ask which one of us is gonna come talk if they didn't want a representative from the CHAB either.
Yeah. Okay, you're right, Peter. Thank you. So, I'm not seeing anybody like jumping up and down saying, I'll do this. So,
Where, are we discussing that now?
no, this is, Dave, this is, we need at least one of us from this board to stand before the select board tomorrow, to explain, if necessary, the reasoning for us voting to extend the scallop season to
Oh,
April.
okay, all right.
Guess I can go.
Jim can go, but Jim's,
Well,
He's
he's
allowed-
not voting on it. He's just,
Can talk about it, I can't vote on it, is that
no, he's,
all that matters?
Well, you
Yeah.
just be representing the position of
right,
the
the
board. You
position
might
of the
not even
board.
have
You're a
to
member of
talk.
the board, you're a member of the board. You absolutely can represent the position of this board.
Yeah, no one's called you to
Exactly,
say.
Didn't tell me yet.
and what Bob said is exactly right. We're an advisory board to them. They make the decision.
Right.
We tell them what we think is appropriate, and then they make the decision. Now, back to the conversation about voting on what we would recommend, then that's a whole nother discussion. But I strongly believe that Jim Sherling could go there and speak and represent this board.
okay. Does anybody,
Not anticipating a lot of comment on it. Anyways.
Right, yeah. I think we're probably overthinking this.
Mr. Carlson, do you know where it lands on the agenda?
I sadly haven't looked at the select board agenda for tomorrow, but like I said, it can be remote. I don't think he has to be there in person, so. But
Alright.
you can set up either way. Like I said, I'm not sure if Tara will be there in person, but I know we'll be, representing the letter that we submitted on behalf of the extension.
Okay,
Like, it's always nice for good positive FaceTime with the
Alright.
board that you report to if you can get it.
I'm not gonna commit at this point, but I will reach out to Erica for an invite to the meeting tomorrow. And Jim, just in case you can't make it, I'll text you before the meeting and let you know if I can make it or not remotely, all right?
Okay.
And thank you. So old business, shellfish regulations will be continued to next meeting. Shellfish warden notifications to commercial-based scallopers regarding red flag days and other vital communications. Jeff, we just kept this on here. I believe, just to clarify, that you're working on, I know you said at the last meeting that you're working on all of these items with the constable. And if there's nothing else to discuss on this, we can eliminate it from our agenda at the next meeting.
Yeah, I would say for both these items, Mr. Chair, for the app, I can say, Tara and Griffin at the hatchery have had a couple additional meetings to get some quotes put together from some app developers and done some other research on similar apps. And we're at the stage now where we're gonna have to bring in our IT department. Just so they understand what we're talking about on a technical level, because none of us understand the nuance of that, but we're pretty close to what that's gonna cost to do and timeframes, but everyone we've talked to seems to think that we should be able to have something in place that addresses a lot of these issues before the start of the next commercial season.
Okay.
At least something to try out. We may, depending on how it looks, maybe find a few of the commercial guys to try it out for a bit, make sure that it works correctly before we roll it out to everybody, but that'll be up to that team.
Great, awesome, thank you, Jeff. All right, so any discussion from board members on shellfish warden notifications? And I'll add to that, the creation of the app for weather reports and daily catch totals.
I'm also happy to add updates on the app to just our general report.
Okay.
Right here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeff. And of course, if you're not here, you'll share that with Tara to share with us. Thank you. All right, new business. Simply the elected or appointed board. Jeff, if you want to explain to the board how and why this came up and why we were singled out. You did it pretty eloquently at the last meeting, very simple, straightforward. Jeff,
So,
thank you.
And it's because I have to, this is just me as a private citizen, as a member of the town council study committee. It's not part of my actual paid employment. The sucker enough to volunteer for this. But the committee asked me to come because they knew I already had to be here. So for those who don't know, a couple town meetings ago, there was an article that was passed that was seeking to develop a charter to potentially move the local form of government from the open town meeting form of government that we currently have with open town meeting and select board and town manager tied to the select board to a representative town council, town manager or mayor form of government. And that's what that group has been discussing. So in doing so, we've been going through section by section of the charter. So you go through it, there's the legislative section, executive session, and then one of those portions gets into how boards and committees are constituted through that structure. So with our consultant, the Collins Center out of UMass, we went through, and obviously for boards that are currently appointed, that structure would remain the same and the appointment would be there. One of the exercises that I had us do was looking at the elected boards and how they were constituted and what their function was. And the discussion that centered around SHAB was the only elected advisory board. And then one of the interesting things that came up was, and based upon the newspaper of this week, it's a little bit of abnormality, is traditionally the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board has been the one board that hasn't provided enough candidates for seats on average. I know that's kind of hard to explain. I wish I had the graphic available. So essentially,
What you mean is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, what you mean is we haven't generated enough for a competitive election, right?
no, there's actually, the way we looked at it was if there was an empty seat and then someone that ran, that's a 1-to-1 ratio. And you were looking for that ratio or greater depending upon seats. And the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board was the only one of the elected boards and committees that was below 1-to-1. So that would mean that if there were 3 seats available in some years, there may have only been 2 candidates, not there were 4 for 3 seats, right? So if it's an uncontested election, it still counts as that 1-to-1, is that there were years that below. So as that committee, go ahead, Dave.
Can I interject there? How many committees, and I'm not trying to throw stones at what you're trying to do, Jeff, because I think it's important and it needs to be done. But how many committees have numerous, right this instant, numerous vacancies because they can't get enough people to volunteer to be on these committees? Several.
Oh, there's a lot, and I think that's a valid question, right? And part of what was discussed in that group was if there are vacancies, if people come forward, there's the ability to appoint those folks. With elected boards, that may not always be available depending upon how it's constituted. And I think vacancies aside, it's also, when we discussed it, looking at it in a sense of making sure that there are candidates running for elected boards. So
But
that was
but
the.
if
Go
we
ahead.
have a vacancy, people apply and then are appointed for a 1-year term or whatever to fill that vacancy. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think that we've sat very often without a full appointed, without a full elected board. They may not have all been in attendance, but I'm just saying, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Dave's right.
I
Dave
feel
was
strongly
appointed to fill Bill Blount's seat. Jim was appointed to fill Stephen Payer's seat. So
No, exactly. There's provisions, right? For elected positions to get filled, right? If someone resigns from the select board, there's mechanisms to get someone on, right? And that's through appointment. I'm just saying that the town council study committee, when they looked at it, looked at how elections and candidacies have been going with the function, and that group, as a majority position, felt that the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board may be better off appointed as opposed to elected. Just for that cycle, but it's not, again, something that's definitively set in stone, right? That charter is just in draft form, but that's why these discussions get had now. So that's what
is it,
group at the time felt. And that's, I'm happy to go through that more, but I don't want to beat the dead horse either.
can I ask you a question? Is there a provision in the newly drafted or in the process charter, or can there be a provision put in there that if there is a vacancy on the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, that they could be appointed by, upon application, could be appointed by this new town entity, town council entity?
Yes, I can say that exists now, right? That's the policy that's in place now, and that's proposed to get carried forward. Just for
Okay,
the, like, we've seen it in the last year with school committee, which is elected as well, where there were vacancies when Pauline Froch resigned, that was filled by application. Obviously, other elected boards, right? If a water commissioner doesn't fulfill a term, there could be an interim appointment, and that provision still remains in place.
all right, so that would still be in whatever new version you
Yeah,
came up
there always needs to be a mechanism to fill empty seats, especially in between elections.
with.
is
Okay,
it Mr. Chairman, is it the final vote on whether the town shift is a style of government and we become appointed, that's a town meeting article? That'll all be written up as a town meeting article and to.
So procedure wise for this, the way it would go forward is there would be a warrant article that proposes a special act to the state legislature to convert the charter. So for that to get approved, that would have to go to town meeting. Town meeting would have to vote that. It then goes to the state legislature for approval. And then it would come back for an additional ballot vote at the town before it would enter into, and it's not like an instantaneous change, there's a transition period to go to and from current to the future, but it would require those 3 steps to even start that transition period.
So it'd be home rule petition, 2/3 majority vote, and then the transition, I imagine, would be the elected members of the board at the time where it would happen, that it was happening, that the transition would happen, and they go to their end of their terms, and then their open spots would be spots that people could apply to be appointed for.
So the way that the transition is set up is, or is currently proposed to be set up, is the council would need to be elected, but there would be about a 1-year overlap to transition in and out, because you would need the newly formed council long enough to set up, obviously a budget, set up any sort of staffing, set up any sort of, policies and procedures that they need to put together to just administer themselves. But the government of the town still needs to run at the same time, right? So you just can't go cold turkey from one to the other. So there would be a period of time where the select board would still exist as the chief executive of the town. and transition to the council. And the most immediate function would be the legislative functions within the town that currently rest within town meeting would cede to the council. So that would be a little bit quicker. But there's also, necessity, obviously, after that vote, there would be one last final town meeting to install a budget for that fiscal year that was about to happen until the council could approve what would be the next year. So there'd be a year overlap.
No, I'm sorry. What I meant was for Shab. If Shab was to become an appointed board, but you have people on the board who are at different levels, how many years they have left to serve, will they be able to serve out their terms before their open spot? would
I
be
misunderstood.
appointed?
Yes. People would complete their terms
Okay,
and then it would
Okay,
slowly
Bob
replace.
had a question, then I'd like to ask a question.
Mr. DeCosta, please. Bob, you're muted. Bob. You're muted.
Got me?
Hey,
Sorry.
Hey.
Are these two things tied together, or are we discussing, is there a discussion to send a separate article to town meeting just to make Shab an appointed versus an elected board? Or is it tied to the town council and getting rid of town meeting and getting rid of the selectmen and that whole, is it all one big article?
It would be one big article. It's part of the charter that lists out the boards that are elected. And that's where this came up, as whether all of the currently elected boards needed to stay, or some of them would be recommended to transition to appointed. So it's all part of that. There's no separate article on the table right now to move Shab to appointed.
All right,
Mr.
well
Chairman?
then, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead, Bob.
This seems to me like it's kind of a moot thing, because I mean, even if this were to go to town meeting, I can't imagine it's gonna come to this spring town meeting, so then you're looking at the following spring town meeting, and then it's, as Jeff said, if it gets voted through with a 2/3 vote, then it's gotta go to state. That doesn't happen overnight, those kind of things. Look at some of these home rule petitions, they've been sitting up there for a long time. Then you've gotta figure out, I don't even know if 1 year's enough time, Jeff. It might need to be 2. You gotta get an election in place to elect 15 council members. You've got to figure out, like you said, a budget. It's transitioning our entire form of government into something completely new. I think the least concerning thing here is the appointment of a Shab board, which, as Peter said, if you just got elected 2 or 3 year term, you would finish out your term, and then you could just apply as an appointed member for that board. The only reason I was advocating for the appointment of this board, if it were ever to change, is because of what the investigator from the State Ethics Commission told me, and the fact that it's an elected board, even though we're an advisory board, causes some problems with even discussing some of these things, is what he said to me. So I think we need to get some clarification on whether, I don't want to get myself into a pickle here with the State Ethics Commission, because I stood up and said, I think we should do something, and then someone makes a complaint. The problem with the Ethics Commission is anybody can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, this guy did something wrong, or this girl did something wrong, and you're investigated. And the town attorneys cannot represent you in an ethics violation. You have to, if you need to get an attorney, I'm not planning on getting an attorney for this. I think it's kind of a stupid thing. I mean, the vote was 7-0 to do this. So even if Jimmy and I had abstained, it still would have gone through. Natural Resources made a positive recommendation on this. They take your weight, Jeff, a lot more than they take ours. So this isn't something like I cooked up on my own. But I don't want to get into a situation where I have to worry about this every time we discuss something. Because as I said, pretty much everything that we discuss, I have some type of interest in, whether it's moorings or docking or fisheries regulations. I'd like some clarification from someone as to how we go forward on this.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think Bob's right. I think we got to get clarification on on his and Jim's particular current situation. But my question is, so are you in your current draft, are you recommending that we become an elected board, Jeff?
In the current draft, that committee is recommending that Shad be appointed and not elected.
I, as one member, totally disagree with that.
Okay, but Dave,
Bob's current situation aside, I totally disagree with that. I believe that this board was elected and the format and the legislation was passed in 1976. I believe it served this town well, and I'm opposed to being transitioning to an appointed board, even though we would probably still be interested and want to apply. I don't believe that the selectmen should have the ability to appoint someone to this board. We know the debacles with the other boards that they have had appointing authority over, and things that they have tried to, those boards have tried to overcome for years. And I'm, as one member, I'm opposed to being transitioning to an appointed board.
thank you for that, Dave. Bob?
One last thing, I mean, Dave will back me up on this. My first foray into town politics was being elected to the SHAP board. God, Dave, it's probably close to 40 years ago. My dad was on the board. I was on the board.
His dad was on the board. Right.
There were, that 7-member board, I think at least 5 were fishermen, if not more.
Yeah.
There might have been 6.
Yeah.
And this board has always had fishermen on it since its inception, since it was first put into play. And, you know, I for one am glad I'm on this board and I enjoy it. But I just think at some point, I kind of agree with Dave that, you know, if you really want to get on this board, you got to take out papers, you got to run. It's a little, you got to get signatures. Anybody can apply to appoint a board. And having been on the other end of it and appointed members to boards, and there are a lot of boards in this town, which is one of the reasons why there's so many vacancies, because we have an immense amount of boards. It's a complicated process. I mean, it's done in, it's almost like it's a popularity contest more than it is an expertise contest in some respects. And that's unfortunate.
That's right.
And you can vote for who the person that you think is the most qualified, and it might not be the most popular vote. And that, you know, you have to write the name down on a piece of paper in front of an audience full of people, and the room can be stacked. And I would much rather keep it elected, and when people get in the booth and they pull the curtain, they vote for who they think is the best possible choice, not based on what the tenure of the room is. So,
I mean, I'll say one more thing. So you're going to have five members of the Board of Selectmen, or I don't know how many people you're going to have on this council, 20 some, whatever it is, decide for the well-being of the harbor and the shellfish industry. You're going to have either those 5 or those 21 or whatever that number is, versus 1,400 voters. I would much rather put my fate in 1,400 voters who look at the candidates' history and experience and responsibility from the past than as Bob says, a possible popularity contest. I'm sure that some of you other folks have some comments too. So I don't mean to dominate, but I feel strongly.
No, Dave, and that's why it's on the agenda. You know, for a minute here, I'm feeling like maybe it's premature to poll the board on this. You've already given your strong opinion on this, and I'm glad for that. Bob has given his opinion, even considering the position he's in at the moment with this complaint being filed, he still feels the way he feels, and I appreciate that as well, and appreciate Bob sharing that with us. This has been near and dear to me ever since I've gotten on this board. This is my 10th year on the board. If it wasn't for Peter Brace putting that letter in the paper, my first campaign was a write-in campaign. And I'm in one of the cycles where it's 2 seats that are up. There were 2 seats available and nobody running for them. My first term on the board, Ken Gullickson put his name in along with me as a write-in candidates, and we easily were elected with, gosh, simply 110, 120 votes because there were no names on the ballot, just the 2 of us writing in. And honestly, at every election cycle, I get a little nervous that this 1-to-1, as Jeff explains it, isn't met. But at the same time, I feel it is more powerful for members to be elected than appointed. And whether the public knows exactly who they're voting for or not, I still feel, and I mean no disrespect to the public on that comment at all. I just feel as though it's more powerful of a voice to be elected versus appointed. And so at this point, I walked into this meeting feeling that way, and as we discuss it, I still feel that way, and I'd like for the rest of the board to express their feeling or opinion on this. If you want to wait, we can bring this up at our next meeting. But I feel, like I said, an elected versus appointed board would be my favor on this. Which brings me to, I'm not sure, I know Scott Anderson has pulled papers for reelection. Jim Sherlin has pulled papers for reelection. And does anybody know, I got a call from Ellen Mayo. She was interested in running. John Logan spoke to me. He was interested in running. I don't know if he pulled papers. And I don't know if Ellen pulled papers yet, but if that's the case, then we'll actually have a competitive, there'll be 4 people running for 3 seats. Does anybody know?
It's been extended, right, Jeff?
Yep, they moved to April 1st.
For the filing of papers, Andy.
Okay,
So I can call the town clerk's office and find out, or go see him and see if. I just
okay.
had one question for Jeff, and I saw you, Scott. What's the track record of the appointed committees and commissions and boards for generating enough members? Have they always been able to have people? They always have enough?
Oh, no, I mean, there's vacant seats right now, right? The Ag Commission has.
So it's-
seats right now. Is part of it, and I think Mr. DeCosta touched on it, relates to. We probably have more boards, committees and commissions that we probably need.
Yeah.
And that leads to vacancies because you see a lot of repeats from board to board. Some of that is the issue. Again, right, and I'm happy to represent this conversation back to the other committee too, right? I don't think it was meant to like. Personally, say people are, doing a good job or bad job or whatever it is, it's just kind of an exercise of function, but it's also. Trying to create something where. It's efficient there. I would feel comfortable to say for that group, if there were other. Boards, committees or commissions that were elected that were in a similar position. That recommendation from that discussion would probably have been the same. For what it's worth.
Thank you, Jeff. So,
Scott Anderson has his hand up.
good. Scott, thank you.
Thank you. I fully believe it should be an elected position. Having gone through one cycle and gone and pulled papers for the second cycle, which I have submitted and is fully done, it helps me make a commitment to myself that I'm gonna be here and that I care about it enough to, again, go through the process, get the signatures, meet with people and talk to them. It's
Yes.
not an easy process. Like, I think getting the paper signed is probably very cumbersome. And, but I've asked myself the question, what does it mean to me? I care about this island. I care about the fishery and the quality of the water. And me signing on the dotted line saying, I'm willing to go pound the pavement to listen to people, what they have to say, whether they agree with me or I agree with them. It gives me a deeper commitment to being here.
Scott, what a great explanation, I have
What
to
a-
say.
well said, well
I,
said.
I actually have that same feeling. I don't want to miss a meeting. I've committed to this. Well put. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Bossy, are you willing to,
Sure.
Thank you.
I would like to suggest that, first of all, say I think it should remain elected. Scott hit it on the head, but, in addition, this new town council, having an election would save them a lot of work. They don't have to appoint, what are we, six members?
7.
No, I know we're 7, I'm saying, but if they don't have to appoint the first 6 if we only have one person runs to fill our 2 or 3 vacancies, right? The town can still, whoever gets elected, it's just one less they have to do, and now they can still go, they're still gonna have to go and appoint somebody. That's the requirement to fill out the board. So I don't see any reason to change it because they already have the opportunity to simply fill it with a appointed position.
Appointed.
Nobody runs. If everybody runs and the positions fill with, like when I ran, I also ran as a write-in. And actually, because of Peter's letter in the paper. And I don't know if there was anybody running, or if there was one other person running that year. I forget who came on with me. There were 2 of us. Slazowski,
yes, Tom Zadlowski came on with
right,
you.
Tom. And Tom, I think, was running. He pulled papers and I was down Florida. And so I started a writing campaign from down there. And we filled it up. But if I hadn't, council would just appoint somebody to fill a position regardless. So I think it's kind of a good discussion.
Honestly, you filled Dan Pronk's seat. Dan Pronk opted not to run for re-election, but at the last minute, he decided to run for re-election, and he did a write-in campaign as well, and you beat him in that. So actually that, if you include all write-ins, that was a contested race as well.
Miss-
Yes, Dave.
Well, and I filled Bill Blount's seat,
Mhm.
and the process of my applying and being approved by the Board of Selectmen was one of the simplest processes I've ever gone through. But the point to Dave Bossy's point is leave it alone, and if there's a vacancy because of some ratio formula, if there's a vacancy, then they can appoint somebody.
Well, actually, you raise a question that I had for Jeff on that was, with us being an elected board, and when a seat needs to be filled like you did, and also Jim Sherlin has done, does it take longer for the select board to fill that seat because we're an elected board versus how long it would take if we were an appointed board? Jeff, is there a difference in that appointment process?
I think the short answer to that question is no, is that
Okay, because sometimes it seems like it has taken a while for that process to take place. Dave, for you, it may have seemed like, okay, that was easy. But for us on the board, going meeting after meeting after meeting, missing that person, and the same with Jim. When Steve Payer resigned, it took quite a while for that to finally happen. So I'm just curious, not that that would change how I feel. I'm just was curious if the process takes longer for an elected board. Mr. DaCosta? Mute.
Yeah, I'm off. So I think this is great. So Jeff, you get the consensus from this board that we would like to stay elected. He can report that back to his committee. And if this goes to town meeting and the committee decides that they want to appoint us, we can always amend it on town meeting floor to stay elected. But either way, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. I would think that this is probably going to go through definitely this election cycle, if not maybe a couple more before this even gets to town meeting. And I don't know if the town, this is going to be an interesting conversation at town meeting for sure, to radically change our form of government. I mean, it's a lot. So I hate to downplay our board, but in the scope of this whole thing, this is a small, minute piece of it. So whether we're appointed or elected, I agree with everything that everyone has said. It's a commitment to get the signatures, and it's a commitment when you do that, and that's why we're all here. Jeff has a consensus of the board now, so he can report back to his committee, and hopefully they'll keep us this way when they finally do go to town meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, Peter hasn't made a comment.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman,
Yes, Peter, please.
as a member who's been on the committee the longest, we've had our vacancies, but we've always filled them. And it's not I don't know. I've never felt like, oh my God, we're not gonna have enough people. We always manage to find people. That doesn't mean that those people popped up out of nowhere. Yes, we did a lot of sort of beating the bushes to find people to get on there. And I'm not for it being appointed.
That would make us unanimous and everybody's allowed to
No,
vote.
we haven't heard
I
from
agree
Mr.
with
Sherlin.
I agree with what everybody said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It is a commitment. You go out and get your signatures and you're meeting the people who are hopefully gonna vote for you. They're signing it, they better, So,
Can I say one final thing?
Please.
And I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's dress, but you guys all know me. And to be perfectly honest, I've sat on a lot of boards and committees, and I've been beat up by a lot of boards and committees. And I got to tell you, the commitment and the strength of knowledge around this table is pretty damn strong. I mean, I've sat on some committees where folks just, no offense to anybody, but they were a placeholder, or they were somebody's appointment, for a specific agenda. And I just feel that we're doing it the right way, and we're taking it seriously.
when you go for your signatures, when you're gonna run and you have to get your signatures, it makes you think. It makes you really think it through. Do I want to do this? There's a thought process. Once you realize it's a procedure. Appointment is you write a letter and say, this is why I want to do it, and turn in your application and hope that the popularity thing works for you. Or your qualifications get you in there. For Jim, obviously, they're gonna look at him and go, yes, he should be on that board. We don't necessarily have experience with him in town government, but he's a fisherman, a year-round fisherman, and the son of a fisherman, but I agree with Dave, there are people who get appointed to boards all the time who are, not qualified. Yeah, anyway.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Dave Franzuto. Mr. Sherlin, are you willing to share your opinion?
Yes, I agree with the other board members that this should stay as an elected board. I think it's very similar to the comments people had with committing. And this is something you have to want to be involved with and you want to show up and you want to give your advice. I disagree with the appointment. Appointing of the board and the fact that maybe you might get people who say they want to be appointed, but they might not be the best choice for the board. You might get appointments that are just the wrong person for this group.
Thank you. Wonderful. I'd like to really, like iron this down with a vote, and I'd like to, if, somebody would propose, a motion, that, we, as the current board, the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, would like to recommend to, the Town Council Study Committee, that, this board remain being an elected board. All anybody has to do is say so move to that.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mr. Bossy to, vote on, the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board remaining an elected board, and this is simply an advisement to the Town Council Study Committee. That's been seconded by Mr. Anderson. Any discussion on this motion? All in favor of the motion, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Mr. Brace,
Aye.
Mr. Sherlin,
Aye.
Mr. DeCosta,
Aye.
Mr. Franzuto.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Jeff, I want to thank you for sitting in on this. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. And I think the board has spoken, and please take this message back to the Town Council Study Committee. And I realize this board will be changing in a couple of months, and it'll change in a year and a couple of months. And if it's necessary, as Mr. DeCosta says, this could take a couple of years. I would like to take this vote again next year and the year after if necessary. I think it's important that the people who are serving on this board have their opinion and their voice heard. I think the passion runs deep. It certainly runs deep here, and I feel it in the rest of the board. Thank you, Jeff, for listening to all of this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It's really valuable to hear from everybody, and I'll definitely send an update some way when we bring it back. Our next meeting for Town Council Study Committee meeting is next Wednesday, so not tomorrow. And we'll try to get it on the agenda for them to relay these comments, and if there's any further discussion from that group. We'll see
Great.
how.
Thank you. And if you feel it's necessary that one of us attends a meeting in person or via Zoom, if they're doing that, let us know, please.
Yeah, I'll talk to the chair and see, and I'll definitely I'll let you and Peter know if that's something that they would like to do.
Wonderful. Thank you.
May not be, maybe the one after that. I don't know what's on the agenda for next week.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the public on anything in tonight's meeting? Anything for our next meeting? Anybody like to add to the agenda? Mr. Brace, I think it'll be safe to remove this from the agenda for the next meeting, this latest topic we were talking about. Other than that, if there's nothing else, our next meeting is March 18th, then April 1st. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. If there's nothing else.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, is that Mr. DeCosta made the motion? To adjourn? I'm sorry.
Jim did, and Dave Botte second.
All right, Mr. Sherlin, motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. Mr. Bossy seconded that motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Mr. Sherlin,
Aye.
Mr. Brace,
Aye.
Mr. DeCosta,
Aye.
Mr. Franzuto,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you, everyone. This meeting's adjourned, 6:29 PM. Mr. Brace.